God. In my red hat, I look like I should be an elf. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good evening.
Today should be relatively painless. We're going to finalize our look at plagiarism for our class, and to the point where I can say, well, I did my part. And thank you. But I got a little paint spot on it down there. Bummed me out. Ink, paint, ink. Very red today, though, huh? So yeah, plagiarism, our final discussion for us about academic honesty / dishonesty. It doesn't go away. It just means that we're finished with it as far as, what we should do in class. Any residue? Oh, the glossary terms quiz. Uh-oh. It all disappeared on me for a second. Or really just points gathering in general. If you've had me before, and if you may have noticed in this class that I like to throw a lot of things at you that you can gobble up points, acquire points that aren't necessarily, academically difficult or whatever. You're easy to study for glossary words and do activities. As long as you do them, you get the points. So that's good because that allows you to, ultimately get a good grade, hopefully. The one thing I want to advise you all, and I'd be a bad teacher if I didn't, is that more than the points, the concepts that you're at least experiencing on those quizzes will follow you into the rest of your academic career as well as your professional career. And I have one example, and I don't know if it's the best example, but it's a most obvious example, because if you're a salesperson, you have to use the appeals. You really do. And so, if you're a lawyer has to know those appeals and how to make it happen. And, the better lawyers can weave those things in and out to convince a jury or a judge to do whatever they want. But my example is like a real estate agent. If you're trying to sell a house, say and you can make a lot of money being a real estate person, right? If you're trying to sell a house, your potential buyer is not going to care that you scored a 50 on your glossary terms, 100, 50 out of 50 on your glossary terms quiz. That's not going to get you anywhere. But your ability to use ethos, your experience. I've sold many houses, and this is one of the best deals ever. I've been in this game for a while, and I know these percentage rates are not going to go any lower. I would take advantage of this now. I've been at it, Ethos, trust me, I'm a good guy. I'm gonna help you out here. Pathos. Well, I'll come back to pathos. Logos, the most obvious one. If I'm gonna sell you a house below market price in a great neighborhood with great schools and great shopping centers and great roads and all these things. That's logic, right? You're dumb to not buy this house. And I don't know what to say to you. I wouldn't tell you you were dumb not to buy it, but I'm giving you the idea. That would be logic. And then pathos, I might come back around to the schools, because you want your little children to grow up and have great opportunities in life. And if they go to great schools, well, that increases their advantages in life, blah, 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 blah. So my point is, the things that you learn to be able to do well on a quiz or an exam are more important than the ability to choose the right answer or whatever. I hope you all know that. And you remember me for telling you that. And a year from now, you'll say, Mr. Smith, would you write me a letter of recommendation? And the one thing I'm going to ask you a year from now, remind me who you are and what you did, how you performed, because it's hard for me to remember so many students over so many years. But when you remind me, then I say, oh yeah, that's right. You were that crazy one who wanted to write about, I don't know, biochemistry or bio warfare. Well, we could, the technology, blah, 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 whatever. So anyway, it's a little side note there. So plagiarism, academic dishonesty. You're not going to hear anything new today. We're going to look at the worksheet, see how you did. Then we're going to take a little quiz together, and then we'll talk about where we're headed from here. And I'm going to throw out a little, what do they call it? Chum, is that what it's called? When you throw it for the sharks or the fish or whatever to try to attract thing, you're throwing like bait. But it's different than bait, it's whatever. But to see who circles around the boat, I'm going to throw a little teaser out for you regarding our final writing assignments. So that's what we're up to today. Before I open the plagiarism document, I'll show you the information here. That's why I was going back and forth. It's difficult. Sometimes I like to wait and open things in front of you all so that you see where I got it from. But then if I wait, then I have to watch my machine spin and spin until it finally opens up. So I'm going to show you where I'm getting things from. Same source that we used is now in the new module, the same information. I just added these few things here. So I'm going to show you a PowerPoint. We're not going to look at the whole PowerPoint. We're going to look at pieces of it. Just as kind of a final reminder of these concepts. And when you get to the midterm, I think the midterm has somebody who's had it before. You might remember there was a vocabulary question about plagiarism, something like, what's the best definition of plagiarism, or something like that. So you might pay attention to this slide that discusses that. So that's what this is right here, the PowerPoint right here. I already have it open. I'm still gonna watch it spin a little bit. If you notice that I sit here with my hand on my face like that, it's not because I'm bored or whatever. It's just most comfortable. I kind of crowded in this room. I got multiple computers and all. So I don't think I'm just bored. I'll be bored later when I'm rating your papers. I'm just kidding. All right, so this is the presentation. It comes from our school, our writing center, which is located in Hilliard Hall. I can't tell you off the top of my head if they're open for face-to-face interaction. I know they were accepting, digital and electronic tutoring services or whatever. Anyway, this is created by somebody there, and it's nothing new. So we're going to skim over some of it. What is plagiarism? Why are we concerned about it? This here is a short video that we'll let do its thing while we Scroll along. Here's the definitions of plagiarism. This first one has more to do with legalities, civil law and stuff like that. If you ever get sued for stealing somebody's ideas or whatever, copyright laws and patent laws and stuff like that. This middle one is more like what we're talking about, borrowing somebody's ideas without acknowledging those. And we call that acknowledgement in our world. Anybody? Citation or citing, cite, whatever. We're mostly concerned with the intellectual theft, not fraud. Fraud would be more of a legal thing. This is a surprising little bit of information here. 80% of you are cheaters. You admit it. Maybe not 80% of this class or these people or whatever, but 80% of college students in general. I'd like to point out a bit about statistics, though, that you can keep in mind. Because remember, you might have heard the old adage that, or the old saying that, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics, right? So if I throw some statistics at you, and it sounds big and impressive, it can substitute for truth. So I say 80% of you are cheaters. Well, no, 80% of all college students that were polled admitted to cheating at least once. It's totally different than 80% of you are cheaters. But to throw that big number out there can sway somebody to feel a certain way. We already talked about how to plagiarize, not how, in a way. Don't tell other instructors I'm teaching you how, but the methods that people use to plagiarize. Pretty straightforward, goes without saying. This last one here, if you recall, is on the syllabus. It's one of the ways that you can plagiarize yourself. It's kind of silly, but it's accurate. And then this one, this is what I'm mostly concerned about. If you don't believe me, then you don't think I'm a good teacher, because a good teacher has his students or her students mostly in mind. It's not about me collecting a paycheck, although I accept my paycheck, but it's mostly about my desire to see you all succeed and not be damaged any kind of way, intellectually, professionally, or whatever. So I don't want you to make accidents. If you're a cheater and you don't get caught, well, I can't do anything about that. If you're not a cheater and you accidentally do something and you get caught, then I'm upset by that. Even if I don't ever know about it, I'm upset for the idea of it. So that's what I'm concerned with. But these, by the way, are just reasons students have said they might plagiarize. But this, I'm not a good writer business. I suspect that might be a strong one, because it's a human thing. Like if we're not very good at something, or we think we're not very good at something, we tend to shy away from it, or we feel anxious about it, or we may be tempted to take an easier route because we don't want to suffer the anguish or the humiliation or whatever of not being good at it. If I you won't catch me on a basketball court, not because it doesn't look fun to play, but because I would look ridiculous and people might laugh at me or whatever, because I don't know how to play. I like to watch. I mean, I know how to play. I'm not good at it. Just a couple more things from the slide presentation, some blank slides there. We don't need to worry about those. I don't think there weren't that many blank slides. What's going on now? My slide presentation, okay. We talked about direct quotations, and direct quoting will become important when we talk about the worksheet in a few minutes. The exam will ask you about the differences between quoting and paraphrasing and summarizing. We've talked about that. Paraphrasing, you make things in your own words however you want and to whatever length, but it's your take on an idea and manipulating the words. Summarizing by nature, you're just going to make it smaller. So you're using your own words, but you're making it smaller. When you quote, you're obviously using somebody's exact words, and you have to cite those. You can't get around it. Back to my integration thing, my finger thing, right? That's an analogy, by the way. Don't forget our word analogy, but whatever works for you, you know, like, I don't know, this monster here. You can't all see, I can't read that, that's for sure. Where is it? All those ingredients, all those go into it, but what happens is it becomes the monster. It's just the monster drink. So it's not made up of all the pieces. It's this one thing. And that's what good writing becomes. You take other people's ideas, and then we just think you're smart. You're so smart, so informed, because you've woven them together very well. So that's what you're doing when you're doing paraphrasing and quoting. So keep that in mind. It's not just about test taking and things like that. This is the slide I was trying to get to, because you'll see when we do our little quiz together, this is the problem that can happen. When you use a quotation, there are basically, this is the Writing Center's take on it, but there are multiple ways you go about it. First, you got to figure out how you want to use it. So there's the middle one. How are you going to put it inside of your writing so that it sounds good? You can't just drop quotations down into the middle of the universe. They have to come from someplace, and they have to, if I poured cayenne pepper in here, I'm not going to drink it anymore. It just can't be this random cayenne. There's nothing wrong with cayenne pepper. I don't like spicy stuff. So it has to feel, I guess, organic. It has to feel like it's meant to be there. So that's you trying to figure out how you're going to use it. And then the important thing for plagiarism avoidance is to know how you're going to put it in there. So introduce the quotation. How are you going to say, here's a quotation from, without saying, here's a quotation from? So you have to properly introduce it. And the best way is to get that author's name up front. It's not the only way, and it's not necessarily the right way. It's most often the best thing to do to avoid not citing it properly. So if you've already named the author earlier, then you can just put that quotation out there and give a parenthetical citation, and that's good. We like that. That looks cool. That looks sophisticated. Cool is probably not a good word. And explain to the extent, don't, like I said, a lot of times students would just plop down a quotation like I'm supposed to go, oh, genius. No, it's your job as the writer to tell me what do you make of that? Why are you quoting it? What's he saying? Why is it important to your topic, or at least to your claim about the topic? And then the final thing I wanted to point out, if it shows up here, I go slow. Don't listen to me. Something about Charles Dickens. There it is, big capital letters. I didn't put it in capital letters, so don't say I'm yelling at you. When in doubt, cite. If you haven't heard me say that, well, there it is. I'm saying it again, and it's being echoed by the Writing Center. I don't believe that you can go wrong. It could be awkward, it could be ugly, but it won't be wrong. You won't get into trouble for citing too much. So when in doubt, cite it or ask your professor how it should be handled. Or if you're in a professional world, you'll have editors or bosses or whatever to ask what you should do. All right, so that's from there. This is a short video. There's nothing tremendously profound or new about this. It comes from the Writing Centers. You see it all? It says speak. Tells me I'm screen sharing. But now I'm spinning.
I don't think that plagiarism is a problem at BU more than it is at other schools per se, but I do think that it's something that's a problem in U.S. universities, yeah, in general.
I don't think plagiarism is a problem at BU. I think especially in SMG, I know we sign a strict academic code of conduct, and I think that really sets a standard of what our expectations are.
I think people are more likely in this age to plagiarize.
It is more tempting because of the internet.
You can find papers on subjects that you're writing if you're having writer's block, and it's very tempting to look up what other people have written.
I feel like even if some people do plagiarize, it might not be intentional just because there's just so many resources we have. Whereas if you, like, I guess, back in the day, if you had like 3 books for your research paper and those were your only 3 sources, that it would be much easier to say, oh, I got this from this source, instead of saying, reading a whole bunch of things and saying, oh yeah, I thought of that, right? Right? You think that you might have thought of it when you really didn't.
The college notions of plagiarism is totally antiquated. Like, it's not up to speed. Teachers aren't hip with internet culture.
I think that teachers do know what's all going on out there, and maybe students don't always realize that.
My understanding of plagiarism is if you just, get something offline, you exactly copy that. Or if you reword it a little bit and it's basically the same idea, you should still cite it in your paper and they should still know who wrote it.
I think it's a thin line sometimes, and students have a hard time understanding what plagiarism is.
I just recently found out, not that I've done it, but that you could plagiarize yourself, which I had no idea exists. So I think there's a basic level knowledge of it, but I didn't know a lot of the in-depth stuff about it.
I use Wikipedia a lot.
I will admit I use it for the theories and the small ideas, but I wouldn't use it actually in a paper.
I think students use it as a credible resource, which is probably not a good thing.
When you go to a page and you find links there, a lot of times they cite their sources and you can go directly to those sources and then check them out.
I know a lot of teachers who do put their papers through a site that checks to see if any of the papers match up with anything online.
I think it's good because everyone in the class feels the pressure to write their own paper and it creates a fairness across the board.
There's definitely a point where you realize oh, this is my real life. What I'm doing now really matters.
I think they'd plagiarize just because they're not confident in their work and they just think they'd get an easy A if they use someone else's words.
The risks totally outweigh any benefits it would have. The repercussions are really, really harsh. It's just not worth it.
It's very important to create our thinking, our own paper. If we do a lot just the copy-paste while we study nothing.
So there you go, from Boston University. I'll share, as we're listening or watching, I was reminded, you all think I just like to show off my guitars, but that's not true. This is a very expensive one. I was learning a song, not learning, I already kind of know it, but I was doing my own sort of arrangement of it. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Led Zeppelin, famous rock band, right? Mostly from the 70s, I guess late 60s, 70s. But they had a lot of millions of fans and millions of records and all that. But if you look them up on YouTube and you look up plagiarism, it's really not plagiarism. It's more like copyright, but it is a type of plagiarism. So this song I was learning is called "When the Levee Breaks."
Some words students use to describe plagiarism include cheating, copying someone's work, dishonest, and claiming credit for someone's work that's not yours. A lot of these are
When the Levee Breaks is one example of Led Zeppelin, who made $1 zillion off of all these songs they wrote or that they played or did versions of. But it was an old sort of Delta blues song, sung by a Black woman, and I'm not somebody named Kansas City. Somebody I think he was a Black guitar player, Robert Johnson kind of thing. So they stole that and they did their arrangement of it, and they got the credits for writing it. And if you look at their catalog, they have a lot of songs that were done by or written by, old blues artists. So plagiarism in the real world. They got sued for it. All right, so on to our work together. And this should be fairly quick for us. Be thinking if you would mind reading for us, because I'm about to pull up the document and I'll need a reader. A person who wants to take command of the language and articulate and show off for the rest of us. Here's our document. Waiting. That. Well, I had it open already. I'm such a dummy. So, I can look at it twice. So the one thing that I wish I could do is have an active file where I can move things around, because it's easier if you look at the paraphrase right in conjunction with the original document. So you'd have to scroll back. I have to scroll back and forth to check it out. Now, I don't have to anymore because I've seen this document so many times. But when you're actually trying to figure it out, you sort of have to kind of go back and forth between the original and the new paraphrase. So be mindful of that when you're doing the midterm. So who wants to be my reader of this rage article or this excerpt? Somebody be brave. We won't laugh. We'll just applaud. Come on. Don't be scaredy cats. You're gonna mess with
I'll
me,
read.
huh? Okay. You'll read?
Yes.
I appreciate you.
Rage can be an
You can just
energizing.
start. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You're good. Go ahead.
Rage can be an energizing emotion, a shot of courage to push us to resist greater threats, take more control than we ever thought we could. But rage is often the emotion that our culture distrusts the most. Most of us are taught early on to fear our own. Though immersion in imaginary comeback and identification of a violent protagonist, children engage. They've, they Jesus Christ.
You good? Good. You okay?
How you say that word? Because I always have trouble reading that word.
I don't know where you are.
At the last sentence where we say engage the rage.
Engage the rage they've stifled, yeah.
Stifled. Come to fear it less and become more capable of utilizing it against life's challenges.
Yeah. You bring up a good point. I really haven't addressed like vocabulary things. Like when you read the Facebook article, you'll see there's a bunch of words that they're not big giant words, but they're not usual words that we kind of throw around. So immersion and stifled are a couple of those that are in this one. Immersion just means when you kind of sink into it, or you get really involved in it. Stifle just means to hold down, or it's kind of like suffocating. You push down, can't breathe. Also, as you were reading, and this is not on Tajane, this is on the writer. I don't really understand this comma right here. If you notice when she was reading, it kind of gives her a pause. It gave me a pause. It gives anybody reading it, because it feels like it wants to continue, but then it's got this comma. It's kind of clunky writing. I don't want to criticize it too much. And then I would also say, protagonist is usually what we consider the good guy. So in this case, we have our children fighting against a good guy. No. But that's not our point here. So if we look at the first passage, rage can be a positive force, and so on and so forth. Well, I could cheat a little bit here. Resist threats, control over lives, immerse themselves, stifled rage, fear it less, challenges in life. Those words, without even looking back up here, they just sound so familiar to me if I just read the original. And guess what I don't see anywhere in here?
Quotation mark.
No quotation marks around. There's a few occasions where there are pretty close to exact words. What else is not here for us?
Like the citation of like the author's last name or like the page number.
Exactly. We don't have the author listed, the title listed. We have nothing to go on. If we were reading a paper and this was a passage in it, we would have nothing to go on. We would think that the student or the writer was saying this himself or herself, and that could get him into trouble. And this would probably come back in a Turnitin with some matching, but it would be sort of like this would match, and then a few this would match, and sort of like that. So it would be spotty. So it would kind of look like patch writing. So this one is plagiarized, because we have paraphrased a little too closely, and we haven't cited our author. So anybody chime in, we can just look at that real quick and say, hey, plagiarized. We don't have to look at it. Why is that?
Because it's like nothing cited. Like
no citation at all. No author.
And it says
page.
So you would think he's talking about like him and him. I mean, his people.
Right. It's like, well, are you saying this, or did somebody else say? This is actually, I guess, up to here, a pretty good paraphrase. But we need to know where the ideas are coming from, right? This is a quotation that is not introduced at all. We have no idea where it comes from. So even though it's got quotation marks around it, which is a good place to start, we need to know who we're quoting. Yes, plagiarized. Paraphrase 3. This is the tough one because it's long and it's got a lot of stuff happening. Now, I confess to my other classes, and I always do. I did this the first time, I don't know, a few years ago. And I got this one wrong when I first looked at it. I thought it was not plagiarized because it's got quotation marks. We got Gerard Jones' name here. We got a parenthetical citation. We got more quoting happening. But I did get it wrong because I failed to see language that is way too close to the original, and the citation is a little too far, and then we get language here that's exact wording. Now the person quotes it here, but if you go back up, with the exception of come to is taken out, but all of this, all the way from children to wherever, is our exact words. So I called that one not plagiarized, but I got it wrong because I failed to see those exact words. I got caught up in it. So the lesson is when you're doing the midterm, be careful, look for those exact words. That's like your third step, remember. And then beyond that, when you're writing, just be sure that if you, like that one fellow said in the video, he says, you know, you might think, did I come up with that? Or did I take that from someplace? I do that sometimes because I'll take a lot of notes when I'm writing things and I'll come back to something and I'll say, oh, that's great writing, Richard, you did a great job there. And then I'll say, maybe I should search it, make sure I wrote it. So unfortunately, paraphrase 3 is plagiarized. Anybody want to take on number 4?
They don't have no quotations, like at all. They don't have no site. They just put Jones. Like, I don't even know what Jones is.
Right. Yeah, I called this one mildly plagiarized. It's like all of this is paraphrased and it's not badly paraphrased, but just the tag, I don't know who was just talking, but just the tag Jones on at the end really doesn't give us a sense of what the writer, the student writer is saying and what Jones had to say. So as you'll see on the next exercise that we do, it's best to incorporate your author somewhere inside of there so we know what's you and what's not you, what's the other person. So yes, to whoever was just speaking. And finally, number 5. I would take a chance on this one and say it's not plagiarized. By the way, for number 3, I would probably, if you had written something like that and did that, I would probably not accuse you of plagiarism. I would just warn you that, hey, you got some exact words here because if you had done this, you do cite it. So I don't think you're up to doing anything on purpose. So likewise, for number 5, I see a lot of citation going on. So I would probably be okay with that. I just, glance at it and see that it's got a lot of good paraphrasing, not a whole lot of exact words unless they're quoted. So I would say this one's good. Anybody challenge me on that? Good in the sense of not plagiarized.
I agree.
I've looked at it several times and I don't see anything that appears. I should go look at the midterm. It will give me the answer, won't it? That's cheating. All right, so I'm going to stop that share. I hope that was beneficial for you in the activity, not so much whether you got it right or wrong, just, the practice of looking at an item with scrupulous eyes. You know what scrupulous eyes are? Well, maybe that's not a good word. Scrutinizing eyes. That's better. Scrupulous has to do with morals and stuff like that. Probably not the best word. So then we'll go back, if I can find it. Oh, wait. Where I am now. Here it is. So we did the worksheet. Now we're going to take a little quiz together. It's more of the same, but I'm going to give you my honest assessment of it, sort of the why. And the theory is that it'll help you kind of be able to observe test items, but also, how to use your own quotations without getting into hot water. Couple of things to point out about this article. If we went back to the Jones article, this is not MLA style on this one. We're not supposed to have that comma right there. And our punctuation always is, well, that's not right, but it's supposed to go on the outside like this right there of your parenthetical. Just a little rule, throwing it out there since we're looking at it. They're not like big major rules, they're just little rules. Anybody want to read about rap music for me? Rap music from an article from 1995, so it's old. 25 years old. I want to read this rap music, why it's misunderstood, as said in 1995. I'll go over it slowly just to point out some things. It's probably best if I do that anyway, because this is a cold exercise. Cold meaning cold for you. Honestly, I've already done this 3 times with my classes. My first class, I was cold. I didn't know the answers. The second time through, I was, oh no, this is my 3rd time, sorry. Second time through, I was sure, but I forgot 2 of the answers. I don't think I'm gonna forget this time, so I can only pretend like I'm guessing at it. But I did get them all right. I wasn't sure, and I'll tell you why. Rap music. Unlike funk or disco or funk, is a new genre unto itself. Disco and funk were variations of an already existing and therefore familiar form, rhythm and blues. Rap music, in its purest form, presents an entirely new sound. So remember that phrase, remember this phrase. I'm just cheating now for you all. This is one of the reasons rap music tends to be so misunderstood, not only by the general public, but also by accomplished music critics. It is completely unfamiliar. It's completely unfamiliar. So if we go down here, let's not even do much of it. It is completely unfamiliar. I don't see any quotation marks. So what can we conclude right away? This one was an easy one. I knew I would get that one right. First off, this text will tell you it doesn't introduce the quotation. We have no idea where this quotation comes from. And then it goes on and it does cite it at the end, but then we're using exact words. And so it all gets kind of jumbled, so that we don't know who's saying what. That one's fairly easy. According to Mtume Salam, rap music is a new genre unto itself. Great, right? We got a quotation. That's good, because it is a completely new form of music. Yeah, that's a paraphrase. It's close to what the other person said. And we do have an introduction to the person. He argues, meaning this person, that the general public and even accomplished music critics misunderstand it precisely because it is so unfamiliar. Although those are some of these are exact words, they're not strung together. So the original writer, Mtume, doesn't own the word unfamiliar, only if they string them together in their own way. So I was venturing when I originally guessed this one. I would have said it was not plagiarized, and I was right. I got lost in this just as a side note. It says, notice too how the writer begins with her opinion and supports it with Salam's words. I don't see her opinion there. Anybody? Am I missing it? Starts with according to. There's nothing wrong with what this writer did, but I don't see her own opinion thrown in there. Number 3, one of the reasons I listen to rap music is because it seems to be completely different from anything I've ever heard. That's pretty good. You know, we're not even referencing the article. You can write about rap music. You don't have to reference anybody because you're writing about rap music or saying your opinion about whatever the topic is. So, and then we go on, we introduce our writer. And now we're quoting him. So we have a citation and the parenthetical. The parenthetical is simply for the word. I mean, not the word, the page number. He goes on to say that many listeners, even critics, don't understand rap because it sounds so unfamiliar to them. All good paraphrasing of what Tomei said in the original piece. So I would have called this one acceptable. Anybody disagree? It's actually pretty good weaving together of ideas so that you're not supposed to steal somebody's ideas, but you're supposed to make it so that their ideas are kind of hidden inside of yours. I know that's a weird, it's sort of like come steal my TV out of my house. Just don't let me know you stole it out of my house kind of thing. It's kind of like that, but it's not really. You're using it. You can use my TV all you want. Just don't let me know you're using it. But let the world know you're using it. Number 4, rap music is a new form of music that, unlike disco or funk, represents. This is the part where I said, slow down, listen. Those words sound way familiar to me. Listeners and critics don't understand it. And of course, we have real close to exact. Now, this one would probably fly on a paper for me. I wouldn't say it was. Only this is really close to exact wordings. But this thing is going to tell us that it's there's not enough citation. We don't know how to distinguish between what Salam thinks and what the writer is thinking, because we didn't introduce the quotation up here. And finally, number 5, Salam states in its purest form. That was one of my things I slowed down on. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look at it, see if it's exact wording. I don't remember the answer for this one again. I feel stupid now. Where is that? In its purest form, it is exact wording. Entirely new sound, which is why it's so misunderstood by expert listeners. Well, all we had to do really was look at here. I'm not sure why they put just Salam's first name there. That's not a good thing. Unless in the previous sentence, like in the paper somewhere, the student had introduced the full name. But we know this is plagiarized just from this part right there. Oops, my bad. Let's see if I got it right this time. Yay. I hope that was helpful. Just walking you through kind of the figuring it out part. Remember, when you are writing, you are the author, you're the god of that paper, so you get to pick and choose, and you'll know what you're up to. When you're trying to take a test where they want you to identify, where the test wants you to identify things, that's when you use that kind of step-by-step process to figure it out. Unless you're just a guesser, then you get like a 50-50 chance, well, 25% chance, whatever. And lastly for today, what we're going to do for next time, Thursday, is we're going to continue. We're moving toward the midterm, which is, partly next week we'll review, and then you'll take the midterm in a couple of weeks. But we also want to keep our feet firmly in our focused topic, which is technology and all its havoc that it plays with us and so on. So we're going to read this article here. Pay no attention to my capitalization right here because I just copied and pasted it from the article. That's not MLA style. MLA wants you to capitalize every major word here. Just letting you know. Is would be a major word. Okay. So this article is from our new version of the textbook. If you don't have that, I've included this link for you. It's not that long. The quiz has been created. It's not that difficult. Kind of makes the same points over and over. If you are a person who likes to read print, when it pulls up, I'll show you there's a link, not a link, but a menu for printing. Gotta move this out of the way. Move me out of the way. Right over here. And so you can print. If you have access to printing, you can email it to yourself. You can Facebook it. I don't know what that would do for you, but all you have to do is just watch out for the advertisements that come in between. You don't have to read all these links. I mean, they might be good for you to consider looking at if you're interested in the subject matter in regard to our overall topic. So the thing I told you I would kind of tease you with is the fact that I don't know what we're going to write about for essay number 2. My original thought, it's easy for me to come up with the same old kind of topic, right? I don't want to say boring, but we've already done it once and we could do it again. But if somebody has any, by Thursday, kick it around in, in your own head or with each other, any creative suggestions, like we could do something. I mean, I can't have you write songs or poems or anything like that, but we could do something different. I don't know. So that we stay in the region of our topic, the technology and how it affects various ways we exist. But we don't necessarily have to just summarize somebody else's work and respond to it. So be thinking about that. I mean, that'll be a choice for you. That's the easy way to go. But if you got any kind of cool ideas, creative, sort of intriguing, I don't want to say fun, but I don't know. I don't want to feed you too much because I want you all to think about it. And I will too. I'll be teasing myself with what might be interesting to do. Always do this kind of thing. And people might say, well, what's boring to you might not be boring to the students because I do it all the time. It's just an option. We can think about something. Attendance time. Any questions? Hope we all feel firm and confirmed in our understanding of plagiarism and identifying it. Talked it to death. Now we move beyond it. Unless you plagiarize. Then I'm going to go, why? Oops, wrong class. You're 27. Mahogany. Kira, right?
I'm here.
Zaria? Derek? Alexis? Rihanna? Avery.
I'm here.
Tristan? Caitlin? Arib? Jaden? Naja?
Here.
Justin?
Well, you said
Kayla?
Caitlin?
Jay here.
Yes, I did. Jaden, yeah.
Camilla here.
Kayla,
Oh, Hughes is here.
Leah. Who's that?
Caitlin Hughes, because I think it's two Caitlins in his class.
Arab is here.
Nope. Okay, I got you. Destiny, Jaden. Who's Destiny? I saw Destiny earlier. Thought I did. Elijah. Ashira? Taylor Harris. Marquavius. Now I'm calling just the names of people I don't think are here. If you're here, shout out, I'm here. Mason. Victor. Isaiah. And Kaylin. Yeah, is Kaylin here?
Have you called Talia?
Yes.
I'm here. I didn't
Jerome.
hear you call me.
Jerome. So Jerome, Kaylin, Isaiah, Victor, Mason, Marquavius, Taylor, Ashira, and Destiny are not here. The rest of you are here. Have a great day. Don't forget to read your article, take your quiz. It's a 5-question quiz. Read the article first. Don't try to take the quiz because it's easy enough when you read the article, but if you don't read it, you'll be like, ugh.
Professor, I have a question.
I'm listening.
So I did my essay, but my Wi-Fi in my room, it haven't been working since last week. So they just fixed it Friday night and I wasn't able to turn in my thing because it was locked, my essay.
Okay. Did you email me or anything about it? Or
Yes,
you
I
didn't
did
have it?
email. I did email you about it, but you never responded.
Okay, well, let me look at the email and class is this 27. And I'll reply to your email.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Did you get me down for the attendance?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Did you get me? Because I know mine was jumping in and out.
No, I didn't. I thought I had seen you, but you weren't there when I was doing roll. Oops.
Did you get mahogany?
I did.
I was here the whole time. I kept jumping in and out.
I figured that. I wasn't sure, but I figured so. Because I remember seeing your name earlier.
Yeah.
Have a great day, everyone.
You too. Thank you.
You too.